Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are making pickled onions, but we are also doing a test. So we are going to test pickle crisp granules with our pickled onions. So what it should do is keep the onions crispier so they don't get soggy, just the same as they would do for your pickles. So to get that crispiness otherwise in your pickles or other produce, you would use lime. And this is supposed to do the same job much easier. So today we're gonna test it out. What I have so far is I have my canner with about 10 cups of water in it. We are gonna load it with 4 jars because that's about what 3 pounds of onions will get me is 4 jars. So I've got some water in each jar so that it doesn't tip over, and I still have some trying to tip over. Now the water level's raised with 4 jars in there. And I'm gonna close this up. I'm gonna turn it on to slow cook and start. So it's gonna heat up the water, heat up my jars, get everything there ready, and then we'll pour the water back into the canner. We won't use the water that's in the jars, but gets everything all hot and ready to go. And then over here on our stove, we'll walk through what the recipe, the cooking process is there. We already have our vinegar, our water, and our sugar in the pot. I got a little carried away and couldn't wait for you, I'm sorry. And now we're gonna add our canning salt here. Yeah. Just doesn't want to fit my little measuring spoon. There we go. We want 2 teaspoons. Only the ½ teaspoon fits in the box. So 4 ½ teaspoons. Of canning or pickling salt. And then we're going to bring all this to a boil. Once it boils, that's when we're going to add our onions. We're just going to have them in there for just a few minutes. I think it's 3 minutes. And then we move everything to our jars. So we've got our jars heating up while we're waiting for everything to boil. And we'll see you when we're ready for the next step. All right, our vinegar, water, sugar, and salt mixture is boiling. So we're going to add our onions. And then what we're going to do is we are going to wait till this gets back to a boil. And then we're going to reduce the heat and simmer for 5 minutes. Oh, lost an onion. I will caution you from standing over the pot because boiling steaming vinegar is a little rough on your nose. Was not my favorite feeling. All right, so as soon as this starts boiling again, we're going to reduce the heat and simmer it. All right, our onion simmered for 5 minutes, so we're gonna get our jars out. Carefully, it's probably hot. Lovely little batch of steam coming out. All right, so before we get started, we've got to put our seasoning in our jars. So I've got 2 regular mouth jars here and 2 wide mouth jars. So what we're going to do to keep it all straight is we're going to use the pickle crisp in the wide mouth jars, and we are not in the other 2 jars. So our seasonings, it gets 2 teaspoons each of mustard seed and 1 teaspoon each of the celery seed. Ooh, that is going to break me of mustard seed. All right. All right, and then our pickle crisp, you want 1/8 of a teaspoon. So I don't think they make the little measuring thingies that small, but we do have 1/4 teaspoon, so we will eyeball half of it. I'm going to leave some of this packaging on there. And they're little granules, just little funky balls. So 1/4 of a teaspoon in each jar. And then we fill them all up with our onions. So, exciting stuff here. Not spilling onions all over my kitchen. Let's move this a little closer. Okay, so we've got our onions divvied out. Now we want to make sure we've got 1 inch of headspace on each jar. And some of them ended up with more of the water, vinegar, sugar, salt solution than others. And then once we've got 1 inch of headspace, we're going to take our spatula, stab everything down, and then add a little bit more water to get back to that 1 inch of headspace. Once we get all the bubbles out, it always makes a little bit of space. Alrighty. Actually worked out really well. So the next thing we're going to do is wipe the rims of our jars, get our lids on there, and we are going to water bath can these, not pressure canned. Pickled onions get water bath canned for 10 minutes. All right, and some lids. And some rings. Hot jars. All right, so for water bath canning, I had to add a little bit of water to my canner because we need the water to come over the lids of the jars. They have to be completely submerged for water bath canning. So for 4 jars, I put in 16 cups. And then with that last pint I just put in, the water level went above the last hot water regular lid jar, regular mouth jar. All right, so we're going to close that sucker up. We're going to go to water bath steam. 10 minutes and start. I'm not sure if you can tell in the camera, but we have a steady stream of steam coming out of our canner. So we are going to hit the start button and it's going to start our countdown. All right, our timer's gone off, so we are going to unplug it and wait for the pressure to die down. This does take a couple minutes, so we'll pause for that. All right, so it slowed down. Yep. We're going to stand back because it's still steaming and bubbling and boiling. Hot stuff. I'll pour the water off the top there. Carefully. All right, so these are going to continue to seal or continue to cook and process, and will seal while they sit on the counter and cool off. Okay, so do not be concerned if your jars have not sealed yet. We didn't pressure can them, we water bathed them. Okay, so they are not, I mean, they're done, but they're not done. So we're going to give these some time to cool off, and they should be sealed by tonight or tomorrow morning. It's been about a month since we canned our pickled onions. So we are going to open up these jars and see if that pickle crisp has made a difference, if it made these crispier, snappier than the other ones. So let's get them opened. All right. So the first thing we're going to check, I want to get a bigger piece of onion here, is we are going to check and see if they actually still like snap and break or if they just bend forever. They're pretty floppy. So the ones without the pickle crisp, there's no breaking on that. You can roll that up. The ones with the pickle crisp, it did break a little bit. So they are legitimately firmer. You know, it broke down the center there. That was a slightly thicker piece. So let's see if we can find a thinner one. Yeah, so this one's about the same thickness as the other one. And it's not snapping yet, but it's definitely firmer to the touch. Oh, yeah, it broke in half that way. It snapped in half that way. This one just kind of rolls like a slug. It's not breaking, it's not snapping at all. Sorry, not the most appetizing comparison, right? So that way it didn't make, or this one did not get crispy or did not stay crispy at all. So taste-wise, tastes like a pickled onion. The texture is definitely different on the ones with the pickle crisp. It has a crunchier mouth feel. That's a new term. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense. It's definitely crunchier. They taste actually pretty good. I don't like raw onions. Of course, these aren't raw, but these are pretty good. So what on earth would you use pickled onions for, right? So I've seen those questions a lot about canned onions and things like that. What would you use these things for? Canned onions, super easy. Anything you'd use cooked onions for. You've already done half the cooking, right? So throw them in your pan, finish sauteing them up, throw your meat in there, save 10 minutes, you know. Awesome, convenient that way. Pickled onions, you've added a little bit more to the flavor. So what do you do with that? They're supposed to be really good on salads. I don't put onions on my salads, so not a thing for me. But they would go good on tacos. You can add them to any kind of like a mayonnaise or mustard-based salad. So your potato salads, your deviled eggs, macaroni salads, things like that. This would be a great flavor to add to anything like that. And pretty much anything you would add a relish to, you could dice these up, or depending on what it is, leave them the same size and use this instead. I would replace a relish with this without thinking twice. I might like these more. But so that's our pickled onions with pickle crisp. It definitely makes a difference. These are significantly crunchier. So they feel fresher while they still have that cooked and pickled taste. So I would definitely use the pickle crisp. Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. We appreciate you watching and hanging out with us. And if you have any video suggestions, please leave it in the comments, and please like and subscribe to our channel.